This week, the Valor Flight Crew podcast welcomes Christian Greengrass, John Hamilton, and Mike Cohen from Echo, who are the incredible team who developed the Future Flight Leaders program.
Middle management is one of the hardest jobs, especially in our industry. You're trying to serve people under you. You're trying to report up to management. You're stuck often in the middle. And so for me personally, that led to burnout. And it was no different than burnout on the flight line as a clinician, but we talk about that pretty readily, and that's still hard to avoid. We'll now translate that into management and couple that with I was naive and young and spent a lot of time trying to fight things that I either didn't understand the historical context to, or things that just were out of my control and I wouldn't be able to change, right? So, you couple that into that traditional burnout and all of a sudden, no wonder people leave, right? So I think from that experience for me, from a lot of the folks that are on, and I'll let John add in if he has any other thoughts, we really try to teach a healthy approach.
Welcome back to the Valor Flight Crew podcast. In this episode, we take a deep dive into a program that's helping develop the next generation of leaders in our industry, the Future Flight Leaders Initiative. Leadership in air medical transport goes far beyond clinical expertise or flight experience. It requires strong communication, mentorship, emotional intelligence, and the ability to guide teams through some of the most challenging roles in healthcare and aviation. Throughout this conversation, we're joined by Christian Greengrass, John Hamilton, and Mike Cohen, the three masterminds who help build and shape the Future Flight Leaders program. Together, we explore how the initiative was created, the importance of developing soft skills and leadership, and why structured mentorship and training are essential for the continued growth of the air medical community. From building strong teams to creating a culture of support and professional development, this episode highlights how investing in leadership today creates a ripple effect that strengthens our entire industry. Thank you to our sponsors, Airbus, Metro Aviation, Precision Aviation Group.
Welcome to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and Vertical Valor magazine, produced in partnership with Echo, Every Coast Helicopter Operations. The Valor Flight Crew podcast promotes the personnel and life-saving equipment behind helicopter air ambulance services. Join hosts Mike Fideli and Blake Schreider for in-depth interviews and expert insights from air medical personnel, pilots, communication specialists, and maintenance crews who play critical roles in airborne emergency response.
Line 1 accepting.
Copy, Line 1, gotcha, accepting. You're going to be talking to Red Feather 1 on LCEMS.
And welcome back to the Valor Flight Crew podcast. I'm Blake Schreider here with Mike Fideli, and we are your hosts. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right now that I'm finally home from work. I can finally chill out and relax. It was one of those days where I think we saw the station for maybe an hour. So definitely got our butts kicked today. But
4 or 5 transports in 12 hours?
Yeah.
Gross.
Fun times. We've all been there. We have those days. It happens. Some days you're the bug. Some days you're the windshield.
and today you were the windshield, I assume.
No, I was the bug today.
Oh, I totally got that wrong.
It's all good.
Anywho, well, we are super excited for our podcast tonight. We've got a wonderful group of people. You may remember from last year, we talked about Future Flight Crew and the cohort and how Echo sponsors inspiring up and coming flight clinicians. And so now they have moved on to another cohort called Future Flight Leaders. And last year was the inaugural class for 2025, and a really great cohort to speak and to really kind of shape not only transitioning from aspiring clinicians to now people working in this industry and really trying to hone in how we can develop leadership from that ground up, and especially within our environment is really a great thing. So I'm really excited for this show tonight, and we've got great guests to kind of highlight the foundations on how Future Flight Leaders came about.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one as well, Blake. And I think we touched on it a little bit when we talked about Future Flight Crew before and what was up and coming, and kind of gave a little bit of a teaser. But now to be able to actually talk with the folks that were really instrumental in bringing this to light and making it actually happen. I remember getting to speak with some of the Future Flight Leaders cohort that was at the Echo Louisville conference, and every single one of them just raved about the program and how much they got out of it. And it's really about filling that gap in the industry that we've had for so long. And this is one of those like niche areas that I think that we're really able to have an effect on the industry and fill that gap and make it a really positive experience. Not just from the crew level, but that intermediate level as well. So I'm really excited to be able to have these conversations, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and kick it off. We've got John Hamilton, Mike Cohen, and Christian Greengrass. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing tonight?
Welcome.
Yeah, doing pretty good. How about you?
Doing excellent.
I'm excited. I came out of retirement just tonight for you guys to talk to you. So excited.
It's been a while, John. It has been a while.
Glad you got your speakers working tonight, Mike.
Yes, got the speakers working.
I'm just happy to be here.
Go ahead and tell us a little bit about how Future Flight Leaders came about. What was the brainchild, the brainstorming? How did you guys come up with figuring out, hey, we need to develop a leadership cohort?
Well, I guess really where this came from is it's a few places, right? So one thing I realized looking at evidence and everything else, looking at how EMS people are trained, looking at the trainers who bring them in, I realized a few things. So number one, I spoke to many air medical leaders throughout the industry, and I asked them the question, whenever you became a leader and you were promoted to your position, did you learn the soft skills? Did you learn how to talk to people, train people? Did you learn how to educate those people so that you could stair step your way up into those senior leadership roles? And they're like, well, no, not really. The training I got was MTLI, which MTLI, I'll tell you, is a fabulous program. I'm a year 2 student currently for MTLI this next year, and I think it's a wonderful program. And, I think that there are things that we can do to stair step our way into that. And where does that pathway begin? Well, the pathway begins when you are told, hey, listen, I want you to take this new hire under your wing. You've been flying with us for a few years. You're competent. Your documentation's great. You show up on time. You look good. Hey, start training someone. And a lot of times I think we forget about that field training level, that intermediate level. So when I called Cohen and I talked to John, originally I was kind of joking. I'm like, hey, we should do it like Top Gun, where we just get all these people together and we play football in the sand and, talk about medicine or something. But really what it morphed into was a real serious thing, which is how can we prepare leaders for tomorrow and get them ready for those more senior roles down the line? We got to prime them up for that. And so that's why I called Cohen and I talked to John about this, because I feel like Future Flight Crew is so successful at getting those students ready to fly. Why couldn't we get them ready to train? Why couldn't we get them ready to begin leading from the base level, from the very beginning? Prime them up so when they do get promoted, they don't answer my question with, well, no one ever taught me how to talk to people, how to have difficult conversations, how to be able to do those things, which helps my program grow. It affects culture. It affects all kinds of things. And so, unfortunately, my schedule is quite tied up with school and everything else I'm in. So, I did kind of turf it over to John and Mike to really carry the vision, and I think they did a really wonderful job. So from my perspective, that's kind of where all this started.
I love how you bring up all of those soft skills and everything in there. And I think there's so much that is in not just flight medicine, but also when you look at the fire service, when you look at police and EMS in general, it's like, okay, well, you've been here forever, so therefore you're suddenly qualified to do this, right? And like that's just that the reality is that's not how this works.
Yep.
And it really does take a certain attitude. It takes a certain level of training or understanding of the systems and the processes and everything that you're going through, and an ability to convey that in a way that is a positive learning environment. And that's not always easy to do. It's not an automatic skill, and it's something that we really need to focus on, training the future. So I love that you were kind of had this brainchild, and we're able to, the three of you, to bring this really to fruition.
Well, and one thing I'll add to that, Mike, for anyone who's listening or anyone who's in our industry, think about who the new hire is, and compare that to the literature we currently have, right? If you look at the Brady book, it was written mostly by Maryland State Police and others, and it's based on police background. And so in EMS, we like to borrow knowledge a lot. And one thing I've found in my studies is that, air medical professionals come with a varying level of experience. A new hire cohort might have a 3-year ICU nurse, a 5-year ER nurse, a 5-year paramedic. They all have vastly different experience levels. And so training that person is going to be wildly different than EMS as we see it today, which the average new hire is between 18 and 22 years old. They have little life experience, and they're broadly just about the same. And so we can't really paint them with the same paintbrush. So we have to approach the training differently.
I just realized that we didn't do the icebreaker, Blake, but I was going to steal from the other Valor crew and say, get your bourbon ready. Because every time Christian says something about AI or research, we got to take a shot.
I was going to mention it and I kept my mouth shut. So I'm glad you brought it up there, John.
Well, I'm sorry for bettering myself.
All right. We love you, buddy. We love you.
I need a bourbon, though.
Yeah.
I need a bourbon, though. I mean, I agree with that part. I mean, I'll drink with you. I'll just say AI 100 times so we can make this more fun.
Down the bottle.
So to get us back on track,
Are we ever on the track to begin with?
well, we're getting on some track. Christian called John and I probably about a year and a half ago and had this brainchild, and we took a look at kind of the industry need and what gap we were trying to fill. And we've got Future Flight Crew, which is a program designed for nurses, paramedics, RTs trying to get into entry level positions in flight. There's MTLI, which is a fantastic program that targets more advanced leadership, some of the executive function, but there really wasn't any type of training for people getting into initial entry management. So clinical managers, base managers, preceptors, and FTOs. And that was the gap we were trying to target. And kind of similar to the ethos for FFC, with us teaching with the mindset of this is what we wish we knew when we were getting into flight. We took a look at, hey, as managers, this is what we wish we knew when we were getting into management. And again, for me, I'll speak for myself. I anticipate this is the same for John, but I didn't kill anyone for a while, did a good job clinically, and they said, hey, we need some help. And that's how I got into management, right? But there was no training, no talking about crucial conversations, how to go from being peers to now my peers are now my subordinates. And so that was kind of the genesis of where this program began. And Christian was kind enough to lend us his brain. And then John and I sat down and kind of happened from there.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
I think when we talked about when you guys were saying, nurse, paramedic, different backgrounds, right? And then not only within those specialties, there's different walks of life and backgrounds where you come from. And I think for the paramedic side of the house, for Mike, John, and Christian, where you started, it was kind of the same thing. You kind of learn as you go. You had someone that was like, hey, here's what you do. Don't hurt anybody. Just do this. And that was kind of it. Like, it was structured, to say, but it kind of got you in the door, but you really had to learn and self-teach a lot of those aspects. But like you said, I never had any training about how to talk to patients, how to interact with other providers, physicians, other nurses. So you just kind of figured it out. But then I think on the nursing side of the house, from watching my wife go through nursing school and onboarding and doing all these things, it is like very almost regimented and kind of written. And there's a whole other subsect to that. And I think it's so great to kind of blend both those backgrounds, but I feel like it all evolves to that same point, right? You do it for a couple of years and they're like, hey, you've done pretty good, Mike. Like you said, you didn't kill anybody. Nothing bad happened. So here's a new person. Let them follow you for a little while. And it just is kind of, you learn it over time, but there's nothing really not a whole lot out there that's structured that says, this is how we train leaders to lead.
Let me add a caveat to that, right? Because one thing that I strongly believe, you can be an excellent clinician and a poor manager. And you can also be an excellent 100%. Manager, not the strongest clinician, right? So just by, hey, you're good at this, we're going to move you into a totally different position with a vast different set of responsibilities and skills. Ergo, you're going to be good at that because you're good at something else, right? Huge pitfall in that thinking. So
It's Peter's principle, right? If you've ever heard of that, it's where you promote yourself into incompetence. And I think many of us, including myself, have ended up in that position before. And so I think it's important that we help combat that before they get to that point.
I think I was just going to elaborate on kind of some of the behind the scenes things too that went into this experiences. I think every single one of us on this call now, and then I would gather everybody that's going to listen to this. You can think in your mind right now of your favorite leader that you've had and like the worst leader that you had, right? And so you pick stuff up from the guy or gal that you want to be, and you don't do the things from the bad leader that you don't want to do, right? But like when Christian brought this idea to us, I think it was even more like it took us a year to put it together, even Mike, and then have our first cohort. So we really wanted to bring people in that were of the good boss, like kind of,
absolutely.
I don't know what the word mantra, because I've lived that, right? It struck a chord with me when Christian brought it up. I was a good flight paramedic, I think. I was a decent FTO, I think, and then just got kind of voluntold that I was going to be a chief now, and I did really well in some of it, and I fell flat on my face in other parts of it, right? It was a fairly miserable experience for some of it, and I loved other parts of it. So we just wanted to give people resources to not have that same experience that we've probably all been through, right? You're just voluntold that, hey, now you're going to, or you take a shot at applying for that manager spot, and then you're the dog that caught the car, and now it's up to you to run the thing. And to echo what Cohen said, like I went from being a peer flight paramedic with my friends that I worked with to now I'm their boss, and that like nobody gave me the tools to do that, and that really was challenging. So that was the main emphasis on learning from our mistakes and some of our misery to not let the rest of the industry have to go through that.
And I wanted to just like bring into it the thinking about those people that you respect so much in the industry, or those leaders you've had in your past that you really do respect, and how they've led their team or the industry. And then you guys started bringing on the instructors for that cohort. And I'm like, man, these are some of the people that I have over the years come to respect so much. Like some amazing instructors you guys have coming in, and really the best of the best, and the people that really just represent the industry in the way that it should be represented. And to have those people coming in and volunteering their time to be able to pay that forward in the industry, like it really just means so much. And I'm very jealous of Blake being able to go through the first cohort. I wish I had the time or the opportunity to go through that. It just wasn't in the cards for me to even apply at that point in time. But to learn from some people that are that well respected within not only their programs, but industry wide across the US, like that's just a phenomenal group of instructors you guys have.
No, I can't agree more. Like Mike and I were insanely picky on who we brought in for this. And I think we got probably 98% of it right. There's a few that we maybe will switch out, but overall, I can't thank all of them enough for, what they did for the first cohort. I think it delivered on what our vision was when we put it together. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. But Lindsay Castle from MedFlight, Ohio is absolutely incredible. Boston MedFlight showed up for us. We had so many amazing programs that, like you said, Fideli, lent their leaders and their time to us for free. And I learned a ton just listening, right?
Yeah.
I think that was, Cohen and I have both been in management spots in the past, and speaking for myself, obviously was not qualified to be instructing with the majority of the people that we had as instructors last year. But I learned a ton too, right? Going through it and sitting there and listening to the conversations that were had. So yeah, I can't thank the instructors we had last year enough. They were all incredible.
I'll echo what John said on that. With Future Flight Crew, we've got a pretty tight knit group of internal people with Echo that are part of our instructor cadre. I went discussing about how we were going to build out the team of instructors, who we were going to look to. I've been in management for 4 or 5 years, and by no means do I feel qualified to teach a program like this. John and myself, we did a little bit of instructing, but a big function of ours was kind of on the administrative side. And we made a list of people that we look up to, we respect in the industry, and people that we wanted to learn from, frankly. And it was great. Every week I felt like I was not attending to lead, but to also learn with the rest of the cohort. And I'll give a shout out to folks that we brought on, because I do feel really lucky to have that caliber of instructor. But John Von Rosenberg from ECU, Keith Velasky from Lifelink 3, Chuck Hogan from Life Flight of Maine, Art Samaras from Atlantic, Brian Evans from Lehigh Valley, Susan Rivers from Carillion, Michael Frakes from Boston Medflight, Lindsay Castle from Medflight of Ohio. Anyone else I'm missing, John?
Man, I should have had that list pulled up. I'm sure we're missing somebody, and that's not intentional, but just, I mean,
I'm going to be honest. I went off the list. I got the list up because my memory is not that good at 6 p.m. But seriously, all people that we feel really lucky to get to know and get to learn from in the industry. And so that's how that came to be. And I think our group of students really benefited from that. I know I did personally and professionally as well.
And I think where you guys really hit the mark was, for a while, the fire service has identified that, kind of the same thing that's kind of happened in kind of the EMS kind of patient transport world. But the fire service also has identified that they have to find ways to bring up their officers and their leaders. And as they progress through the ranks from either lieutenant captain up to battalion chief, division chief, so on, they've really started that trend for a while now on how to develop their leadership. And I think it's so great to see that we also bring that type of educational foundation to our environment, right? We have our own kind of subspecialty. And so I can just think of, my intent of going through it was, to further develop myself to be a better leader. And when this initially came out, I couldn't apply fast enough, to be a part of it. So, for our listeners out there, can you kind of talk about what would you say would be either requirements or recommendations or qualifications? What should somebody that wants to further define themselves and kind of work on the leadership training, what would somebody need to kind of be qualified or eligible for a future flight leader cohort moving forward?
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
We don't have a ton of prerequisite or requirements. We obviously want people who have an interest in some type of leadership experience, whether that's precepting, operations track, base management sort of deal, clinical education, clinical management. And then we require applicants to have 2 years of flight experience to be employed as a flight clinician. So people who are working in the job, we figure that 2 years is kind of the baseline experience to start getting in the door. And we want people with genuine interest. And I'll actually expand on that. We set, again, pretty minimal requirements. And I don't know, John, if you had any expectations of folks that we were going to get in the cohort, but I can tell you when we got applications rolling in, we had people from all over the industry. We had folks with 20 years of management experience. We had people who hit their 2 years and were looking to get in kind of fresh into the flight world. And so, yeah, we had quite the range of applicants, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. And we what'd you guys do for future flight crew this year? Cohen, almost 300 applicants, right?
Yeah, we did 227, I think was our final number, which is 76 more than last year. But we've rounded up, so 300 sounds good.
Yeah. No,
close, John.
286 was sticking in my brain for some reason, but
guy math.
I was
I
close.
don't know if I could go through another 60 applications.
No, to the point though, not trying to pat ourselves on the back, but we're really proud of what future flight crew morphed into when we took it over in 2019 think it's when we took December of 2019.
Yeah.
But, we had less than 100 applications to the future flight leaders just because it was a new program, right? And people were probably kicking the tires and waiting to see how it shook out. And I was insanely proud of the cohort that went through this year. It was an amazing group of people. To your point, Mike, Blake, I'd be curious to hear your side of it as a student, but Dave Weber, sleeper, right? He was in the cohort and delivered one of the best opening talks that I've ever heard at a conference, right?
Absolutely.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm saying all of this is we intentionally wanted to keep the group a little bit smaller,
Sure.
just to, do this initial kind of trial run with it. And man, I couldn't have asked it to have gone any better. So I was really proud of the cohort that we picked, and amazing applicants, right? Every single person that applied deserved a spot in that room, and we just had to keep it manageable. But yeah, I was really impressed with the applicants, and this year's group was awesome.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how many applicants the numbers grow by this year. You guys will be opening up applications for future flight leaders coming up here, in another month or two. And by the time this podcast goes live, probably only about a month. So
Yeah.
it'll be cool to see how that exponential growth is occurring for this particular program as well. Because like I said, every single person that I talked to that was in the cohort absolutely raved about it. And I know a few people that I do work with that are extremely interested in the program and can't wait to apply. So I'm really looking forward to see how much that's going to continue to grow for all of you guys doing this.
Yeah, the growth is exciting, especially with it being a brand new program last year, and a little bit of us hopefully didn't appear this way, but trying to fly the plane while building it. And this year I would anticipate it would continue to grow. I mean, the challenge, and I feel this way about future flight crew, right? Currently with both programs, and this is always subject to change, but we've offered about 25 spots. And you can imagine going from 220 plus applicants to 25. I mean, pretty much everyone deserves a spot. And it is tough. And I would say that is pretty much the same with future flight leaders. Our goal is to have a cohort where, because we have weekly meetings on Zoom and Teams where we can foster that type of intimate discussion and create that community and not get too big where people don't connect. Because with future flight leaders, it's only 10 weeks, maybe expanding a little bit longer this year. But it's hard because there are a lot of people out there that absolutely deserve a spot and should be in leadership. And we want to give the opportunity to as many people as possible without compromising the integrity of the program.
If I can for a moment, I want to change direction. And this was a thought that came to me, while kind of going through this program. And then just as we were talking, it came back to me. When I've kind of noticed a trend over my time in flying, and Christian, I'll kick this to you to start, and then Mike and John, please chime in, and Fidali as well. I kind of noticed at some point there was a trend where I would see people that were in leadership positions. They get to that position, they're there for a couple of years, and then they go back to the flight line, or they round it back to being like, and not to say that, stepping back to a different role, and not that it's stepping down or anything like that, but you're just changing that role back to just being patient care or bedside, right? What are the trends on that? I mean, I've seen that quite a bit. I see a lot of people that get into those spots. And is that a fault of our industry because there isn't really a training for leadership, or do we just have not the best expectations? Is the environment not that great? So how do we combat that to where future flight crew and developing ourselves as clinicians is to help provide that longevity for us to be good clinicians? But how do we do the same thing if you get into a leadership role? How do you maintain being a good and efficient leader for that duration?
I think that's a very, very good, very loaded, but very good question. So I'll tell you this much. I think it's multifactorial, right? We have to think about a few things. So air medical, we're in this linear growth with a few things that we're so small that once again, it goes back to my point earlier that we borrow knowledge from other industries and we try to apply it to what we do. And so that's where I think like MTLI does a good job, for example, because they've made that knowledge their own. So I think when it comes to these lower levels of management, we have to stop borrowing knowledge from other industries, or even looking at, even though we're EMS, we are still different because we have different response models. We have different thoughts and understanding. We have different types of new hires, et cetera. So that's one factor. The other factor is that because of that training, I think people do step down because the personalities of the people that we hire in this industry are very self-aware. You know, I was in that position. I can tell you, I was an educator for a program and I was still very new to flying. And then, like to John's point, you know, there are things I was really good at, things I fell down on my face, and I realized, I was like, you know what? I need to step back. I need to get into my roots. I need to go through, you know, an FTO program. I need to be a flight line clinician for a little longer. And that was actually advice that John and both Cohen had both given me at some point in time. And so it was really good when, you know, I moved up to Care Flight and I started flying the line and I developed what my strengths really were. I had a better understanding of the industry. So I was able to, when I did promote back into a leadership role, I found a leadership role that fit best for me, and I felt more prepared, even though you're never fully prepared. The other thing is it's generational too. You know, we have a young generation, you know, our dopamine's pretty depleted from our, you know, these wonderful devices. You know, we're very quick for the instant gratification, I think. You know, call me old school, but, you know, I think we're very much like I want that dopamine dump. I want to move up. I want to promote. I'm also very motivated, which most of our clinicians are, but that's where the mentorship comes in to help you understand those soft skills where you're like, I'm self-aware enough to know that do I have the base competencies besides what the job description says? Do I have the base other competencies in how I talk to people? How do I manage social situations? How can I have change management? I think change management's a big part of it too. Our industry is very dynamic, and most people struggle with change management pretty consistently. So for us to get better, I think we have to step back, look back at from a 30,000 foot view and look at the big picture of where the industry is going, where it is now, and where we were, and then develop based on that trajectory, ways of developing our leaders so that we don't have those step backs as often, because those can come costly to a company. Turnover is expensive. John, Cohen, you're both the management, you know that. I know that it's expensive. I'm a data guy. I see it. So, you know, those are the things I think that we have to do to help promote the industry so that we can grow on a good trajectory. So you have your future flight leader, future flight crew, you fly, future flight leaders, and eventually you'll go to MTLI, you'll go to LIFT, and go to other programs to help develop you in a good trajectory.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
I'm glad you asked that, because that's actually been sitting on my mind while we've been having this discussion. I can reflect on my own progression into management and then out of management back to the flight line and now back into management. And I'd say a big core of what we try to do with future flight leaders is teach healthy leadership and create longevity. And we hear a lot about that from our instructors, because again, you take a leadership position, but how do you make that healthy, build a lifestyle that supports the longevity and not, again, a quick return back out of that position? And I saw this a lot as a new leader. I was 3 years into my flight career. I really wanted to get on the management track. And I saw a lot of people that were older, more experienced clinicians, and their general attitude was, management's dumb. Been there, done that. It's the worst. I don't ever want to do that again. And that didn't deter me. I was too, yeah. Well, right. And we've
John,
all been there
down.
in some capacity. Yeah, John, we're on a podcast. People can't see that. But he did it for the YouTube viewers, for the YouTubers.
This is true.
Yeah, but so that was the general sentiment. It made me a little nervous, right? But I got into it, and I didn't build a healthy lifestyle surrounding management. I was the AOC all the time. My phone was going off multiple nights in a row, nonstop. I was super focused on things that weren't in my control, right? And again, I'll venture to say, and this is my belief, but I think a lot will agree with me, middle management is one of the hardest jobs, especially in our industry.
Yep.
You're trying to serve people under you. You're trying to report up to management. You're stuck often in the middle. And so for me personally, that led to burnout. And it was no different than burnout on the flight line, right? As a clinician, but we talk about that pretty readily, and that's still hard to avoid. We'll now translate that into management, and couple that with I was naive and young and spent a lot of time trying to fight things that I either didn't understand the historical context to, or things that just were out of my control and I wouldn't be able to change, right?
Yeah.
So, you couple that into that traditional burnout, and all of a sudden, no wonder people leave, right? So I think from that experience for me, from a lot of the folks that are on, and I'll let John add in if he has any other thoughts, we really try to teach a healthy approach.
Like, can't agree with you more, Cohen, but Blake, the person that you just described was me, right? Like, I was flight crew, got into middle management. Couldn't agree more with you, Mike. It is the suckiest position to be in any organization, I would imagine. But trying to deliver leadership above you, if they have an unpopular thing that is now going to be rolled out to the org and you're the one that has to deliver on that, it's a lose-lose situation so often, right? And for me, when I promoted was also like in the last probably tail end of COVID. So I was dealing with all that while we were still locked down and the COVID responses on our teams. Like, the team I had was incredible, right? Like, the team that I was given the opportunity to lead was some of the best in the industry. And for me, the stress of delivering the expectations to that team was insanely hard. And I had no training for it. Nobody, like, they threw me the keys and said, good luck, figure it out. And then, you know what, when I messed something up, man, did I hear about it from both sides, right?
Sure.
And when I did something great, or the team did something great, you try and recognize that, and, you take your wins for your losses, but nobody showed me how to do it. Like, somebody retired. Congrats, John. Now you're chief guy and whatever. And nobody gave me any left or right boundaries unless I messed something up, right? And then recovering from that, for me, like, man, you can do 10 things perfectly, but the one thing you mess up and do wrong, like, you may not ever recover from that, right? I'll be transparent. There's people that may or may not listen to this that probably would never want to see me again. And it is what it is, right? I'm not perfect. And I did a lot of things right, and I did a lot of things wrong, like I said. But I guess getting back to future flight leaders, the thing for me was, kind of resonating on what I said earlier on, we've all had good managers and bad managers. And I think I've been a paramedic for almost 20 years now, which is insane. But you have leaders in the past that only cared about the brass on their collar, right? Mm-hmm. And then you had leaders that cared about the people. And that's what I wanted to be, was the people leader. And I'll believe it till the day I die. If you surround yourself with a good team, they do good for you, you do good for them. It's a full circle, like, you take care of each other, right? And man, if you have a bad team in any part of that, a bad apple will sour the entire batch. And man, it's tough. And I don't think anybody, even the people that we had in as instructors, were like, yeah, this stuff sucks. So like, let's figure out how to, Mike, to your point, the people that I look up to in this industry were talking about things that just hit so hard with how tough this job is. So by providing that level of just brief education, we didn't do just leadership tactics. We went through hiring process, to my point about the team, right? Like, we went through that with them. We went through mental health stuff, because it's like, you talk about my bourbon consumption, right? That's something that skyrocketed because of stress. And
you still have that barrel?
I still have it right next to me. Yeah. But no, I mean, your phone going off at 2 a.m, right? My wife, Katie, she would always say, like, man, I don't know how you snap out of a deep sleep and make decisions like you have to at 2 a.m. on the phone call when dispatch calls you about something going on, right? Like, that wears on you. I don't care who you are. And, for me, I was in a spot to whereas, like, I got another opportunity. grateful for the opportunity I had where I was, but everything happens for a reason. And I was able to get into what I'm doing now and be just boots on the ground for CareFlight. And I love it. So, everything happens for a reason. Somebody has the ticket to success for the question that you asked, Blake. I think we could do an entire 2-hour podcast on that topic alone.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it really drives home the point that like all of you are getting at, and that there isn't that preparation to actually fully tell someone this is what you're getting yourself into. And this is how to manage that, right? And I think that's where a lot of people end up having those pitfalls. And we do see those people end up falling back as, they're not taught how to put those or make those boundaries from the beginning to be able to maintain their own sanity and their own, wherewithal and abilities to be able to perform that job. And it wears down on people after a while. And you get, it's like you're a high performer in one area. So great, we're going to promote you. And they just expect more and more and more. And it becomes a lot for those people that are new into those leadership positions. And I'm not just talking about management. I'm talking about leading from the front line. When you always have an orientee with you, when you're now promoted to a base lead, when you're in charge of 15 different projects because they know that you're a high performer, like it's all of these little things. And you're not really prepared for what that's going to look like and the demands that are placed on you being in that position. And I think, it kind of brings home the point of what all of you guys have just said is that we need to change that concept and we need to foster that growth so that people can go into it prepared. They can set their own boundaries. They can understand where they are professionally and personally and how many responsibilities they can accept realistically going into those situations, because I think that's the big challenge. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Valor Flight Crew podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information. Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
That wraps up this episode of the Valor Flight Crew podcast. A big thank you to John, Christian, and Mike for sharing their experiences, insight, and advocacy on a topic that affects all of us in healthcare and public safety. One message stands out clearly. It's that leadership development doesn't have to happen by accident. Programs like Future Flight Leaders remind us that strong teams and strong organizations are built when we intentionally invest in mentorship, communication, and leadership growth. Whether you're stepping into your first leadership role or you have years of experience guiding teams, there's always something to learn from those who came before us. And as our guest shared during the conversation, you're not alone in management. Leadership can feel isolating at times, but through programs like this, our industry is creating spaces where professionals can learn from each other, share experiences, and grow together. Because when we develop better leaders, we ultimately build stronger teams, and that benefits the entire medical community. To all our listeners, thanks for joining us for this conversation and your continued support of the Valor Plus platform. Whether you're part of a flight crew or just passionate about the world of air medical transport, we hope you found some takeaways to apply on your next shift. If you haven't already, head over to www.echoflightcrew.org to learn more about the teams and programs that support this community and be sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time on the Valor Flight Crew podcast, where we continue to highlight the people and stories that make this industry great.